Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name's Alex, and today we're going to look at how generative AI can help reduce workload while also supporting student learning. You may have heard about generative AI already, but to start, I want to briefly define what we mean by generative AI. When we say generative AI, we're really talking about tools that don't just retrieve information, they're creating something new in response to a prompt. For a lot of people, this shows up as something like drafting text or summarizing documents or even generating ideas. But underneath that, it's a pretty fundamental shift about how we interact with technology. And that shift has happened incredibly quickly. If you look at other technologies like mobile phones, the internet, or social media, it took years to reach large scale adoption. Generative AI, on the other hand, reached that same level of adoption in a matter of months. And that's exactly why we're having this conversation now. Because when something changes this quickly, it starts to impact how we teach, how we work, and how students are learning immediately. The goal here is not to keep up with everything that's new, but is to figure out how we can leverage these tools in a way that actually reduces workload and supports learning. The question really isn't whether AI will change education, it's how we choose to use the tool. And so the way that I like to think about generative AI is that it's really playing two roles in education. First, it's a tool for you. It can help streamline a lot of the work you're already doing, like drafting materials, creating assessments, or handling communication. The goal isn't to add something new to your plate. What we want to do here is help reduce your workload and give you some of that time back. At the same time, it's also something that your students need to learn how to use. They're already encountering AI in internships, in jobs, and in their everyday tools. So part of our role as educators is to help them use it thoughtfully and not just efficiently. First, I want to take a dive into how we can use generative AI as your tool and what that looks like in practice. What you're seeing here are a few different ways that this can show up across your work, ranging from course design to administrative tasks to student support. Generative AI is most useful when you think of it as a starting point, but not a final product. Whether you're working on your course materials or administrative work, it really helps you get past that blank page. And then your role is to review and refine and apply your expertise. But rather than walk through each of these, I want to show you what using generative AI in education can look like in practice. So I'm going to walk you through a workflow in Copilot, where I'm building a lesson plan, an assignment, and a lecture. So let's start by asking Copilot to help me design a lesson plan for teaching biogeochemical cycles in an undergraduate course that I teach in environmental science. One thing to notice as I'm hitting send, I'm typing this the same way that I'd ask a colleague. There's not any special commands, it's just plain language in the message box, the same way you'd send an email. So it came up with a lesson plan for biogeochemical cycles, identified learning objectives, some key concepts, materials that I would need for my lecture, and then broke down a sample lesson, including time intervals that I should be spending on each section. So it's identifying the different cycles that I should talk about in here, some discussion points, and even how I can assess my students on their learning. And so what we see right here is it's a good output. It's fine. Overall, I find it to be a little bit generic, but that was because I was generic. It has no idea how my class was structured, how much time I have, or what my students actually need. So that's the lesson here. The more context that you're able to give Copilot, the more useful and tailored the output can be. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of my context now. I'll let Copilot know that my class is only meeting twice a week for 75-minute lectures and also has a 90-minute lab. And I'm asking it to revise that lesson plan accordingly. And to help me with the lab section and make a lab that's hands-on. So we can see that I entered this to the same conversation and there was no starting over. And so this is really what working iteratively with Copilot looks like. Your prompt doesn't have to be perfect on the first try, but you'll refine it the same way that you would work with a colleague. Each follow up can help tailor that output you want to be closer to what you actually need. So in this case, you can see that it parsed out my lesson plan into those 2 lectures and a lab, identified learning outcomes for it, and found what concepts would fit within the uh, within the framework that it identified for each lecture. Has the goals once again parsed it out by minutes and what to focus on, and then even gave me information on some ideas for a lab that I could run that would complement the lesson plans that it made for me. And so it gives me the materials, how I need to set up for the labs, and what kind of deliverables that students can provide afterwards. And so now I have an idea of how I want my classes and my labs to potentially be outlined. We want to keep going in the same thread. And so one of the places that generative AI can really shine is within idea generation, especially when you're looking at a blank page and you're trying to design something creative. And so we all know that building a good assignment can be really hard. And we're going to ask Copilot for some help in doing that creative lifting today. So I'm asking Copilot to use this week's lectures and create an assignment that allows students to use AI critically. They will need to analyze the output, they need to evaluate the output, and we want students to identify errors in AI generated thinking. We're also asking for a rubric to be made for this assignment as well. And so this is beyond just give me some discussion questions or help me make a quiz. We're giving Copilot a goal, a thinking framework, and specific constraints. The more intentional we can be about what we're asking students to do, the more useful output we're going to get when we're looking at Copilot. And so this is an assignment about evaluating these with AI as a tool, these cycles. We have the learning objectives. We're going to ask students to generate that AI generated content and critically evaluate it. So identify any scientific inaccuracies, misleading statements, or one oversimplification. We're going to have an assignment, part of the assignment, have them reflect on this. And from what they've learned, they'll make a revised explanation for these processes. And we can see down here that it's parsed out a rubric with us, what is excellent, proficient, etc., for each component of this assignment here. And so we have a starting point for you. Your critical judgment is really the most important part here. We are able to generate a rubric really quickly, but you really know what mastery would look like for this assignment and for your course. So what we're seeing here is Copilot can help us with those ideas, but you get to decide what's good enough to use, what you want to edit, and what you want to modify. So now I have a lesson plan, I have an assignment, and the next thing I want is help developing my lecture outline. But rather than letting Copilot pull from general knowledge, I want it to work from the actual textbook that my students are using. So this is an important habit. When you have a source, hand it over to Copilot directly. You'll see the Add Document button right here, where you can attach files from your cloud, you can upload images and files from your computer, or you can link directly within this Message Copilot window. So I'm going to upload the open source textbook that we use for this course. And once it's attached, Copilot is actually going to read it. It's not just aware that this document exists, but it's going to be working from the content inside. So now I've told Copilot I've attached the textbook we use. Based on the lesson plan that we developed together and the contents of this book, I'm looking for you to create these lecture outlines for each class session. And so you can see it's starting to flesh out what I should have in each of my lectures. But what I want to point out is that it's actually directly pulling from this source material. So it's not just something it's generating from scratch. It's grounded in the materials for your course. And so, beyond just a textbook, you can do this with your own materials, whether that's a syllabus, a set of lecture notes you have for your class, anything that you'd normally want to reference when you're designing a lesson or assignment, you can directly hand over to Copilot for it to work with. And so as we're going down, you see it reference this textbook in multiple different places. So it's truly grounded in the content that you are teaching in your class. And so now I have these lecture outlines that are grounded within the actual textbook. And here's where I want to show you something that may surprise a few people. Most of the time when we think about Copilot, we're thinking about getting some form of text back. But you can also be very specific on how you want that output delivered, whether that's in a Word document, a table, a structured outline, or even PowerPoint slides. As long as you define your expectations and let Copilot tailor the output to meet those expectations. So I want to take the lecture outline that I just made and turn them into ready-to-use PowerPoint slides. And so this one will take a moment to build. But while it's working, I want you to think about what this could mean for your own workflow. You can take your syllabus summary and you can turn it into a student-facing document. You can have a rubric that's formatted as a table in Excel, discussion questions into a more structured handout. Whatever format is useful to you, you can ask Copilot explicitly, and it will format it for you like that. Now that Copilot's taken some time to create the slides, we can see what the output looks like. And so we have our lectures that are parsed out, grounded in contents from the book and images as well. And so this is a great starting point. I'd probably clean them up, adjust the language, and integrate some things that I know should be in there, perhaps restructure some things. But you can spend a lot less time refining this instead of completely building things from scratch. And that's really the point of everything I just showed you in this workflow. Copilot's not here to replace the work. It just is changing where and how you're spending your time. The thinking, the judgment, and the knowing your students part, that's still yours. This just helps handle the blank page. So what we just looked at is how generative AI can support your work, helping you save time and get started more easily. But this shift is also changing what is expected of students. We're already starting to see that show up in hiring. 66% of leaders say they wouldn't hire someone without AI skills. And what they mean by that isn't just exposure to AI, it's capability with AI. Not that they've only tried this tool once, but they've used it to produce something meaningful. And so that's what we really mean by AI fluency in practice. The ability to create, evaluate, and improve something with your own judgment. But from a teaching perspective, this changes the goal a bit. We don't just want to introduce AI, we want to create opportunities for students to engage with AI and to demonstrate how they're using it in the classroom. And I know when we talk about AI fluency, it may feel like something we have to build from the ground up. But the reality is, it's not a new outcome. It's existing academic judgment, just applied to AI-mediated work. In other words, the core skills that you're already teaching still apply. Things like critical reading, helping students question sources, evaluate claims, and spot assumptions. But the difference is, now students can apply that same thinking to AI-generated content. The same is true for reflection and metacognition. You may already ask students to explain their thinking or document their process. Now that can include where AI helped, where it fell short, and where their own judgment mattered. So rather than thinking that we need to add something entirely new, this is really just adapting what you're already doing and making that thinking visible in the context of using AI. The good news is you don't have to do this on your own. There are resources out there that can help you and your students build AI fluency in really practical ways. And I'm going to show you two that are particularly useful. But more importantly, I'm also going to show you how you might use them. The first, it's Microsoft Learn. Think about Microsoft Learn as a place where you can build skills over time, either yourself or as a resource to point students to when they need more support. The second is Microsoft Learn for Educators. This one is directly tied into your teaching. It can give you materials that you can bring into your course, so you're not starting from a blank page when you want to integrate this. So I'll show you what both of these look like in practice. First, let's take a look at Microsoft Learn. I'm going to start on the Microsoft Learn homepage. Here, there's a wide range of self-paced resources, ranging from AI and Copilot to accessibility, productivity tools, data, and a lot of other topics that faculty might want to explore for their own learning or can explore to support their students. If you know what you're looking for, you can use the search bar directly, but you can also browse if you want to see what's available or you're not sure where to start. So I'll go up here to Training, All Training, and then we can browse all paths. As you can see, there's over 4,000 different options here. So there's really a lot to explore on Microsoft Learn. In this left-hand pane, you can use Filter to narrow down your results. Here, I'm going to filter by Copilot, Higher Education, and then I'm going to look at courses that are appropriate for beginners to see what might be relevant for faculty. And so we've narrowed that down to 53 results. As an example, we're going to explore this AI for educators. And so from here, I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to show you how this course is organized. We can open the learning path, which consists of 4 different modules. And so what I like about this is the way that the content is structured. It's organized within a learning path and all the information's in one place instead of as kind of scattered articles. Within this learning path, if I scroll down, you can see the modules are going to be the main lessons. And within each module, there's going to be units, which are smaller sections within the lesson. The nice thing about units is, if you have a limited amount of time, maybe you have 10, 15 minutes, you can just complete a unit. But if you want something more comprehensive, you can work through an entire path. If you sign in and create an account on Microsoft Learn, you can head to your profile page in the upper right corner. And so you can see here that all of your progress is actually going to be stored in your profile. This is a way to keep track of all the learning that you do over time. In addition, when you're signed into your account, you can also save content. You can come back to paths you've started, and you'll always have a record of what you're completing. Another thing that I want to point out is this student hub right here. This is a useful area to be able to share with your students for their own learning and skill building. So here you'll find a lot of curated resources that are targeted right at students. In addition, Microsoft Learn also has an educator center. The educator center brings together training and resources that are organized around educator needs, including areas like that AI for Education course that we just speak at, accessibility, classroom tools, and broader professional development resources for you. And so as I scroll down, you'll get a sense of how the Educator Center is bringing together a range of teaching-focused resources. But I want to show you something that you can bring directly into your classroom, which is Microsoft Learn for Educators. And so if you go ahead and sign up with Microsoft Learn for Educators, you will be brought into this educator portal. And so the goal of Microsoft Learn for Educators is pretty simple. Overall, we really want you to have practical, skills-based content that you can integrate within your classroom without having to build everything from scratch. And so this Educator Center right here is where you will be able to access all of these materials that are really aligned with real-world tools and skills. But these materials are really designed to be flexible. So you can use as much as you'd like or as little as you want. So even if there's just one slide you'd like to integrate in your course, you're welcome to do that. Everything that you will use is going to be organized here on this left-hand rail. And so the first thing that I want to point out is registering your course. And so when you are leveraging the Microsoft curriculum and teaching materials, when you register your course, you can gain access to free or discounted interactive labs for students. And so these labs are really designed to give students more hands on practice through applied real world scenarios. So they're not just reading about concepts, they're actively working with them. The next area that I want to show you is going to be the Learning Download Center. And within the Learning Download Center, this is where all of those teaching materials that I was talking about before live. You can filter by language, and then you can look at all these different courses that are offered. So, say for my course, I want to integrate some AI skills to help build that AI fluency for my students. So, I could take this Work Smarter with AI course, and I can see what materials accompany it. So, you can see there's a wide range of materials that you can select and download or take pieces if you'd like. When you do download the material and you open the course, this is what it looks like. So this is the PowerPoint deck that you would receive. But in addition to that, there's also instructor guides, assessment materials, and hands-on activities. And these are all packaged together for your use. So in my class, I would probably open these slides, take a few, customize them for my course, and building this would be much faster than taking all of these elements and building them myself. So I could even just pull one piece, whether that's a slide, an activity, or formative and summative assessments I could integrate into my class and just drop it into something that I'm already teaching. So between Microsoft Learn and Microsoft Learn for Educators, you really have both sides covered. You have ways to build your own skills, and you also have ways to build your student skills and ready to use materials for your classroom. So to wrap up, there are really three things I want you to take away from this. The first, this is about getting time back. Generative AI can help you draft, generate, and automate routine parts of your work so you can focus more on where your expertise matters most. Second, AI fluency isn't something new. It's really an extension of the skills you're already teaching, just applied in a new context. And third, you don't have to build this from scratch. There are resources available, like Microsoft Learn and Microsoft Learn for Educators, that you can use directly or adapt for your own courses. If you're thinking about where to start small. Pick one place in your workflow where this could save you time or add value for students and build from there. Thanks for joining us today. I hope this gives you a helpful starting point as you begin to think about integrating this within your own teaching.